Bonjour.
No, stop.
It's a great pleasure for me to join all of you in celebrating our process of growth and development. I want to thank those of the official governments who have come and have been a part of this. And it's certainly necessary to have the official government here with us. We want to thank the young people who have been helping us elders make our way to continue this great journey. We want to thank those who have been on the forefront in making these institutions and organizations work. So let's give all the leadership of this summit their acknowledgement. Evelyn, Joe, our sisters and our brothers. Now I have to apologize because as a professor of Africana Studies and taught by the great Dr. John Henry Clark, my introduction is usually 30 or 40 minutes, and my blast, meaning my lecture, will be 2 to 3 hours. Well, that's not what we'll be about tonight. But I will have a chance, as we interact over time, to meet many of you. My brother just came and he told me he's been taking groups to Africa 19 years and he'll be celebrating his 20th year. Put your hand in the air, brother. His goal is to continue to expand the contact between the Africans in America and the Africans on the continent and elsewhere. I don't want to date myself or show how old I am, but I'm heading toward 81.
Wow. Oh.
And I'm still feeling, meaning I still feel that power, that pressure to do something. And people say, Dr. J, are you really 81? I said, you better believe it. Step back, don't mess with me, because I might,
No.
start to go to African glory. But I would like to say seriously that these activities that have happened in these last few days and the activities that you have been doing personally and organizationally are key to a historical process that we are about, and that is the rise of African peoples. We are truly into a period of the African Renaissance, the rebirth of African greatness and significance and importance. And we need to appreciate that. Our personal efforts are key and crucial. What we do with our organizations are necessary, but it will have real impact if we understand that it is a global rise of our people. It's not just Uganda rising, or Nigeria rising, or Jamaica rising, or Black America rising.
Pan-African.
It is the Pan-African family rising that is the key. And in these 80 plus years, I bear witness. I've been a part of the rise, so I know its significance. But the rise can't sustain itself, can't be significant in terms of dealing with these other great forces that are impacting our life unless we have Pan-African unity as our mode of operation. So as you do what you need to do in your individual countries and your individual organizations, you need to see it as a process of coming together. When I was born 80-something years ago, a lone African leader, a lone voice in the wilderness, spoke to the world. That was in 1936-37, and that was Emperor Haile Selassie. And Haile Selassie was speaking to the League of Nations to help Ethiopia fend off the predatory aggression of Italy that was attempting to colonize A single voice in the wilderness was asking the world to do something. And it was not done. Shortly after that, fascism, imperialism increased, and eventually we had World War II, in which millions of people were destroyed, and the world went into a catastrophe. And after World War II, we had to have plans for rebuilding. And the European world, which had devastated itself in World War I, then you had the Depression, then you had World War II, the European world was attempting to rebuild itself. And they met in San Francisco in June 1945 to put their world back together again. No Africans were there, just Europeans of all types and Asians. They realized in order to pull their world back together again, they needed, first and foremost, the riches of Africa, the strength of Africa. And so the plan was, out of San Francisco, to create an organization of European American power based upon the exploitation of Africa. We have to have a historical perspective in order for us to understand where we have to go and what we have to do. Africans, however, having had extensive experience in Europe and America, going to the institutions, living in these nations, Africans met in October and November of that 1945. In Manchester, England, it was the 5th Pan-African Congress. And those Africans had as a mission to chart a course for Africa. That wouldn't be an Africa super exploited by others, but would be an Africa that had control of its destiny. And a number of important people was there. Who was there from America? W.E.B. Du Bois. Who was there from Jamaica? A whole host of great scholars. George Padmore. Who was there from the continent of Africa? Nnamdi Azikiwe, Kwame Nkrumah. Who was there? The family of Marcus Garvey, his wife. So Africans met to map out a plan and a strategy. And that's what this summit is a process of. It's not an individual effort, it's a continuation of planning for our destiny. And that's what we have to do. That's in this class. 1945, Africans signed a pact. It was not a pact signed in blood. It was not a pact that they signed their signatures on. It was a pact of the heart and the mind, that they would find the means to block a recolonization, and they would find the means of a unity which was a mission impossible. Because all of these African nations, in the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean, South America, and Central America, where African peoples are, had a difficult cultural dimension to conquer. Because some of them were influenced by the French, and that created a whole other dynamic. Some of them were influenced by the British, that created a whole other. Some of them were influenced by the Portuguese. Some of them were influenced by the Americans. So we have to find the strength to overcome the divisiveness of the cultural dynamics of our people. And in spite of je parle français, in spite of I speak Portuguese or English, we have to find a unity formula. So in my going back and forth to Africa too many times, I'm embarrassed to say at least 100 times, in the Caribbean, Brazil, and in Africa. I'm embarrassed to say that when the gentleman from the Central African Republic was speaking, my heart jumped a beat, because I was in the Central African Republic at the time of Uganda, the president, in 1965. I was also there in the 1970s when the republic was replaced by Bukasa and the devastation of that experience. My wife went first to Africa in 1960 to Nigeria, before it was independent. She was in eastern Nigeria at a little village called Ehamufu, near where they built Nsukka, University of Nigeria. So we had this long distance relationship so we can see clearly. We can see clearly now what African peoples have to do in unifying their economics, their politics, and their culture. That doesn't mean getting rid of your national status, but it means harmonizing your national status with other nations. It doesn't mean getting rid of your culture. It means appreciating your culture and sharing it with others. There's a voice of singularity greatness who spoke to these things. And that voice comes from a Senegalese great scholar, visionary, Cheikh Anta Diop. And he left us with a blueprint, civilization and barbarism, establishing the primacy of Africanness, that humankind begins in Africa with Africans, humankind emerges out of Africa, learning how to live in organized society. Humankind finds a blessed river valley called the Nile Valley, and humankind lays the foundation for high culture and civilization. Africans don't have to take a back seat to anybody, from Europe or Asia or anywhere. Africans are in the front seat. They have to get their mind and their consciousness together and take control of their destiny. And that's why these meetings, these gatherings, remind us of what we have to do. One of our great scholars told us of the dilemma that we have trying to link what? Economics is the first principle of universe. We have to have a systems analysis, and we have to put in place African systems in order to deal with the world systems that oppose us and exploit us. Economics is not something that just is an enterprise. Economics is what you do to sustain yourself and your community. Economics, as the first principle, has to be complemented by politics. Politics is the complementary principle, and politics allows you to control your economics. And the key to economics and politics is culture. Because culture tells you their deep values, what type of politics, economics to develop, and who to do your politics with. So this is the larger picture that I just want to say that we're a part of. I'm glad to be a part of it. Cheikh Anta Diop, and I want to end with this. Not only left this great work about our ancient history, he also left works about our current history. That Africa's wealth is so significant that it can sustain the planet, and we have to control that wealth. That's what we call Black Africa. He also knew the divisions of Africa need to be overcome. So he wrote a book about the cultural unity of Africa. And so we have to be able to tap into the mind of these great ones and sustain a plan of action for ourselves. And so I'm proud to join you in this effort. Listen to me again. If there is no struggle, there's no progress. And so we've got to struggle. And not struggle just for our personal aggrandizement, but we need to struggle for the rise of African peoples, African Renaissance. And in doing that, we have to overcome the difficulties of unity. Right. One of our great brothers, and I can't leave you without acknowledging this brother, Dr. Wade Nobles, a brother from San Francisco. This book he did is on the Haitian Revolution, the study of the Haitian Revolution. Wade often told us African people everywhere suffer greatly from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. So we have to know the mountains we have to climb, but we have to get that consciousness organized and working together, and we have to get that identity. Going beyond just being a Nigerian or just being a Ghanaian, just being an American. We have to see a larger Pan-African consciousness. And with that, we're on our way. Thank you, brothers and sisters. The struggle continues.